Okay, welcome to the second episode of Tea and Stuff. And I'm lucky to have our special guest, Adam, with me today. He is actually already a podcaster. I've seen kind of life coach. He puts out a lot of really inspirational and just sort of like very helpful on the spiritual kind of just like spiritual side, however you want to define that. But yeah, you're a guy that I didn't hear about initially until people really close to me were like, oh yeah, like we were like in my live sessions, people be like, oh, we were talking with Adam the other day, and I was like, oh, who's this Adam guy? So I sort of started following you a little bit, and I got kind of just the gist. But so many people that I know are big fans of yours, big what would you call it? They're big supporters of you. So I was like, podcast with you, especially considering you're an experienced podcaster. It was like, well, that's probably be a good start. So yeah. So I'm Jeff as always, but take it over, Adam.
Thanks, Jeff. Today I'm Adam, as is on most days. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. I'm really glad to be part of your second episode. This is your second episode. Is that what you just said?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what can I add onto your introduction that you haven't already said? I wouldn't call myself a life coach. I'm new to coaching, just to be transparent. And my focus is on digital mindfulness and digital minimalism. That's part of my most recent training. I got trained as a certified digital wellness educator last fall, sort of in the ashes of lockdown and pandemic.
I didn't realize that there was a certified course for that. I mean, I'm extremely delighted to hear that there is, but
it's still really new. It's still like early days, if you want to call it that. It's part of a small organization called the Digital Wellness Institute. So
do you
yeah, go ahead.
So as the devil advocate, not that this is how I feel, but somebody that sees that and goes, why would I need that? Like, why would I get it. I should limit the amount of time I'm on my phone and interact with people. But I mean, why would I possibly need someone to guide me through that?
So that's a really good question. It's a question that right now is mirroring seemingly what is also a large question in our culture, which is I'm just gonna jump into this. But if we feel like we're living in a universe right now where people are like, is there a pandemic or is there not a pandemic, right? Or is there an emergency or not an emergency? Then we probably would also come at this particular subject with that same kind of binary, question. Some people may think to themselves, I think I have a problem. I think I'm addicted to my phone. I think I'm addicted to social media. I can't stop using it. I'm dealing with burnout all the time. Like that's one construct of thought. And then there's, something a bit more nuanced, which is like, look, we are 18 months into this pandemic, a lot of which was also in lockdown.
Yeah.
There's been by some measure an immense amount of digital transformation that has occurred in this 18-month period. It's hard to quantify just how big it's been, but obviously we've had so many sectors go fully remote. We had all of last year, schools were fully remote or almost fully remote. So there is this growing awareness by entrepreneurs, by CEOs, by remote teams, by families, educators, um, people who just have been living a lot more of their lives online, as of last year. All these different touch points, if you consider I'm talking to my therapist and hanging out with my family and doing a dance or yoga class, or doing a screen share to watch a movie with my friends or family who may be living in another state, or we may be living close by but we're staying isolated, just due to COVID protocols. Like, so much of our lives have kind of wholesale been moved onto online spaces.
And if you want to like even look at podcasting, I mean,
Yeah.
so obviously new podcasts, and there's a lot more people now that podcast has really risen, and it's become this like platform where people of all different industries sort of can be like, find if they have a good way to jive with other people, then they just sort of sorry, I got a message
No,
ding and it threw me off. Where was I at?
No worries. You're talking about like just the prevalence of podcasting in a pandemic.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like people like you. I would hope to say like myself that are really more positive influences that are available online. But geez, you have to also admit that there's also a lot of not even people that are purposely being malicious, but just maybe they're just venting. But that venting sometimes it unfortunately helps breed anger in other people because it feels good for a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, this is like, if we look at how much time as a society, as a so-called civilization we've spent in online spaces, it's still relatively really, really new, right? Within the sort of coexistence of like a commons, right? So yeah, we're like really messy. We have really poorly defined boundaries, especially when it comes to like dealing with our own lives, ourselves, right? Our emotions, especially catapulted amidst so much uncertainty and danger and risk of acquiring this virus, which for a lot of people has really serious long-term implications, if not obviously death being the worst. So it's a lot. And so all that to just to distill down to really answering your question, why would someone want to work with a digital habits coach? Well, it's why would you want to work with any coach, really? I mean, if there are people who want to work with a life coach, work with a money coach, a business coach, a parenting coach,
it's just another form of therapy that like you said, it's an evolution of our society. Like now social media is a thing. It became a thing and now it's a thing. So it doesn't mean that we're so far gone and now society's collapsed and it's the end of the world. It just means that like we need to acknowledge it and check ourselves and go, is this a problem? Like you said, is this a problem for me? And if it is, how much of a problem? So you need to start looking at, but I don't think there's anyone, I asked that question, obviously knowing the answer. Like, I don't think there's anyone that would say that they're absolutely perfect and they have positively nothing to work on. But a lot of people, like, their lives are tied to like me, like tied to social media so much that how do you unplug? And it's just, you figure out basically how much you need to unplug. Like, so I know some friends that need to take month breaks. And
that's a really good, it's almost like sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's very much like a 30-day detox, if you will, or a cleanse, is another way of saying that, has a lot of utility. It may be hard in the short run, but it may have has a lot of utility in the long run. I also don't I'm not coming into this field, and I came to this field in particular via user experience design. So spending years working with startups, and I guess here in LA, just lots of marketing agencies on like
Yeah.
designing and co-architecting, digital experiences, obviously predominantly web or app based. And I personally, I'm not coming at this with we all have a problem, tech is evil, we need to unplug kind of, uh, I'm not coming up with that kind of hyperbole.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think it's useful. I think that's useful for like selling workshops and books and products. But
Exactly.
as a marketing strategy, I cannot, I can't really
Yeah.
commit to that. Also because I don't believe that that's really what's going on, like, at scale or en masse. I think that we are living with in such a new space, in a new routine, against the backdrop of uncertainty, that we do need to like stay in our bodies somehow. And it's my aim or my goal in this kind of a service is to, like any other coach, hopefully, is to be accountable to someone else, to a process, right? For ideally a process of, or a journey of like self-discovery. Because we have these tools, they're really useful, especially
Yeah.
in a pandemic in the 21st century. And obviously, a lot of these um, platforms are, just part of um, the attention economy, right? So it's our eyeballs and time that equates to their ad revenue. If we don't pay for it, I would like, it's so like, this is such an old and sort of kind of dead subject, but it's like, I would love to toss Instagram, $3 or $5 a month just to stop seeing ads. Like
Dude.
if I could do that in any other app, just here's $2, here's $5 or $10 or something. Um,
Yep.
I would love to have that option personally, right? So so there may be aspects of feeling disempowered, um, but it's not disempowered because you or they are malevolent and evil people. Although, there may be some people who really just are pure evil.
A few.
But for the sake of this conversation and this particular topic, and just to be respectful of nuance, and to really not really throw these serious terms around. I'm not an expert on addiction. I'm not a licensed therapist. So, but I do recognize, having been in this field for years and having been, in the T space for over a decade, and pre-pandemic, as a UX designer, I would like also moonlight as like offering tea ceremony, or gong fu tea ceremony, like as a, like a mindfulness team building experience for the very technologists that I was contracting with.
Yep.
And that was really powerful too. And that we can kind of save that for another conversation. But
I'll tell you another thing that
look,
a lot of people jump to, like we were talking about when we talk about this problem, they jump immediately to, oh, well, I don't necessarily spend too much time on my phone. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, so maybe not the time, but what is the quality of, like, what are you doing on there? What are you putting out? What energies are you putting out there? Because you can be posting videos of puppies all day,
mhm,
or like I said, you can just be like venting your every anger with ferocity. And not, I'm not
yeah,
going to even tell you that one is always incorrect or correct, but it's, again, like you said, it's important to, why you exist is that your profession is that people need to maybe reevaluate just how they're using, not even just how much time, but how.
yes. I mean, right, quality over quantity. Some people may just want to attack the metric of of like time spent, right? They have their screen time tool, whether it's Android or iOS based, and they see like, yeah, I'm on my phone for 8.5 hours a day. I'm a terrible person. So immediately there's this hamster wheel narrative, right? So they're going to chase down this metric. And sure, like if you reduce, can I say if you reduce from 8.5 to 5 hours a day, you're a better person? No, it's not for me or anyone to tell you that. It's
I don't know if
up to
that's
you, like
calculable.
how you. I don't know if it's exactly. I don't know if that's exactly if that's calculable, but the point being, and I'm in full agreement with you that it's at this stage of just so much and just immediate overwhelm and a quickness to burnout, um, that it really is the mindset of quality over quantity. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What's the goal? What's the outcome? And how does it make me feel? And it's not, again, it's never going to be like those 5 questions in that succession as you're like reaching for your phone. You don't really have that time. Sometimes most people reach for their phone for seconds. They want to look at the time or see that notification, but maybe not respond. Or like if they're standing in the supermarket or sitting at a red light, like you may reach for it for that 30-second, 20-second window for some kind of dopamine drip. So we have to recognize that, like, look, we're using these things as self-regulation devices, right? These are like an appendage that we're self-regulating ourselves with. So just to be aware that like we're doing that, whether it's good or bad is kind of not really on the table right now.
A lot of people will
Um,
will draw the drug analogy and they'll laugh at that. And it's like, but I mean, if you really do just think about the basics of addiction and what that means and how it works, it's just like, yes, I could easily say that it is more than possible for someone to definitely be addicted, kind of physically, mentally, uh, to social media, to their phone. It does seem at first silly, but it, it's completely within the realm of possibility that it can have that effect on someone's psyche.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are, just to say out loud as well, like there are um therapeutic or like psychiatric addiction oriented programming that's being developed, as we speak by if not licensing boards, but perhaps out of particular institutions or um, you know, appropriate bodies of people, organizations or therapists or psychoanalysts to also like help people focus on that in particular. The way I'm coming at this is, again, I don't focus on the language of addiction, though the acknowledgement that it is very real or at least very possible for people, but to really inspire the people or the groups that I'm working with to somehow find the bandwidth. And I say this from like, I have to like check the privilege that I have to be able to even pause and question like, how much time am I spending on this? Do I have the bandwidth to even do that, to be able to work on that in this sort of a process um, over some length of time, because so many people, especially right now, I mean, here we are, on the other side of um, so many important programs having just been either stripped away or run their course, right? Like pandemic, unemployment assistance for millions of self-employed folk and freelancers, both on the state and federal level, and then housing safety. There was this eviction moratorium that lasted so long, and now both of those band-aids have been ripped off at the same time.
Mm.
So I do not expect hordes of people right now to come, questioning their phone use right now, because everybody's, like we're right now we're in this sort of ripple effect of that this new reality where there's just going to be a lot of like just responding or reacting to a now even more stressful scenario. And then as we come into fall and winter, and with this variant, it's going to get a lot louder, and it's going to be more cases, and it's going to get a lot colder, and people are going to insulate more and probably isolate more. It's really intense times. So I um I say all that just from a place of humility and humbleness and respect for people's process, whether they're ready for this or not. And this isn't like, this kind of a process is not um like an intense process and like a intense journeying or that kind of thing. But it is a process where you are, kind of up against yourself. I mean, you are your own mirror, so um but again, like my focus, because of my own personal journey with tea, is to remind people that there's so much in real life to help balance phone use or tech use. If we establish these boundaries, the boundary of I mean, the elegant boundary or the elegant obstacle of like a methodical brewing process, whether it's tea or coffee. There's a lot of coffee folk out there who are really into an amazing different brewing methods or brewing technologies with different tools, and they're so into that process. And if you could make it a ritual, like, cool, you've just taken your phone use down by like an hour,
There
like
are
because it's in a, you know what I mean?
Taiwan, if you need proof of that, friends that I know and producers that I'm friends with obviously have in Taiwan, they've showed me coffee shops in Taiwan. And dude, you walk into some of those coffee shops and it looks like a tea room. And even how they're brewing stuff, the type of equipment they're using, but you take a closer look and you're like, wait, they're brewing, that's how they brew their coffee. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like it can be like, that's the really beautiful thing about gong fu. I mean, or would it be gong fu? What's like the larger lesson of gong fu? What word would define that?
I mean, to me, the larger lesson of Gong Fu is just showing up and trying.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether you do it right or not is like, who gives a shit if you do it right or not? At this point, just remember, and sorry, I hope,
no, you're good.
using actual language is, just it is what it is. But I use right now I'm using the analogy of tea or Gong Fu when talking to people, about digital mindfulness. And the same, I use the metaphor of like, remember at March of last year, facing like what does lockdown mean actually, and people running to go get a bunch of sourdough starter and flour so that they try baking bread at home. Why does everyone want to start baking bread at home? It's not necessarily because they want to eat, you
I'm
know,
I'm not a
more homemade bread. But
I'm not
like
a,
I think it was just having to do with like, oh shit, what do we do? We're gonna be stuck at home for who knows how long. What can I try doing that's going to be this really immersive, time-consuming process? Let's bake bread. I mean, baking sourdough bread is like a 24-hour labor of love and sweat, and like it's a constant like fucking up experience that's
yep.
so humiliating, but it's that humiliating experience that's so rewarding
Yeah,
because you
people were so
keep
weirded out
trying.
by that. And it was like, well, it's like, or how did it happen? And it's like, well, what happened, like you said, was that people have been inside. They're like, uh-oh, I'm going to be inside for longer now. So I've already used up watching all my movies and doing puzzles and all that crap. they're like, well, what am I going to do this lockdown? So people were, just organically looking for things, meaningful, like hearty things to take up their time. And it just took one person, an influencer of some sort that made bread that was just like, making sourdough bread is a solid like 2 day, at least 2 day process. And a bunch of people like looked at it and just went, hey, I can get on board with that. So it's not that it was stupid, and it's not that it came out of nowhere. It's just that
Totally.
it was one of the things that was very applicable to what was needed at that time.
Yeah. And again, the sort of drawing the parallel between baking or prepping sourdough and like learning gong fu style tea brewing, like there's a really nice, obviously they're not the same thing, but just in that sense of like coming to a practice,
Yeah.
finding a way to develop a relationship with these tools. I mean, all these tools are imbued with character. You care for these vessels. They each have a personality. You start to relate to them in new ways over like time, right? The whole idea is about being, pun intended, steeped in whatever's happening, right? We're steeped in uncertainty. We don't know how long this is going to last. And we don't just want to binge watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, I binge watched Ted Lasso and I'm in love with the show. But
it gets old at some point.
but like, I mean, if you're just in this sort of, sea cucumber state of just absorbing and not like doing something. And again, the doing something may be different for so many people, right? So many people took up new forms of exercising and finding new ways to exercise at home, right? Because gyms were closed for so long. So like getting kettlebells and tools and all these, like that's wonderful, because again, you are using your hands or your limbs or your body to do something immersive, right? Some people took up like making crazy puzzles.
My two things were the podcast. That was my let's figure it out, this big project. Like, let's put all these pieces together, really do research, figure out if it's something you should do, blah, blah, blah. The other thing I bought at the very beginning when I found out shutdown was happening, I bought a kickboxing bag.
There you go.
And I'm not a pro. I don't take classes, but it's such a great physical exertion to punch and kick a bag, even for just 15, 20 minutes. So I'll even some days where frustrations were at an all-time high, I could just go down there and just, if I needed to unleash, I could just completely empty myself. And then afterwards, I felt I had such clarity. And
absolutely. I mean, this is why gyms existed to begin with. I mean, it's moving your body, right? Getting exercise, getting oxygen, getting blood flow in helps release cortisol and whatever other stress hormones we are living with, especially awash in a pandemic and uncertainty and stress of all forms. And so being able to release that in whatever way has immense benefits. And it's really those kinds of overarching themes that I am focused on and motivated by when working with people and supporting them through this process.
I feel like if you ever got the skeptic, like the real open skeptic, I feel like you could just go, okay, well, listen, if you're uncomfortable with all the language about digital addiction and stuff like that, let's just chalk this up to the greater topic of just let's I think keeping mental health in check.
Yeah.
Like if you're squeamish with the whole, like the sometimes of the lingo that goes into some of that stuff, that's okay. but it's like, it's luckily there someone like you is doing it where you're doing it for the right reasons. So when if somebody is a skeptic and they do dig a little further, you're not going to just go, I don't know. And then the person will forever be a skeptic. Like you have somebody that can literally just sit there and kind of take that, absorb it, and then give them like not a comeback, but just give them like a thoughtful response to their criticism.
Yeah,
And sometimes like
absolutely.
that's what for me sometimes like I'll like my wife years ago, she was like, let's go pick strawberries one Saturday. And I was like, I love strawberries. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fruit guy, but I'm just like, really? Like, I think there's better things we could do today. Like, it's like, it's not, I love going apple picking. So I'm not completely opposed to it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I fought it so hard. And finally, after like, having some time to cool off about thinking about it, I was like, why not? I have nothing else planned. Let's go strawberry picking. We went strawberry picking and like I had a ball. Like I had a great time. I was like munching on strawberries left and right. Like I had a total, it's just sometimes you just need that little bit of help to just, it's not like realize you have a problem. It's just help you find the solution more so.
And also I hear that and agree. And also on the one hand, it's like give in once in a while. It feels good, but even beyond that, I think one of the most important so-called soft skills to maintain or develop right now, 18 months into this thing, is curiosity. I mean, on the one hand, we want safety and security against uncertainty and stress, right? We want routines and regimen. And yet our ancestors were, in pre-agrarian societies were foragers and nomads, and we need something like that. We need to, not necessarily we need to all go be foragers, but just, I don't know, we just need to stay curious, and part of that curiosity may even be in that line of thinking like, not do I have a problem with my phone, but just like, like maybe the idea could be around like, um, can I take up more cooking or baking or preparing tea as a method of regulating my tech use, or like just regulating myself,
Yeah.
learning new ways to regulate yourself. Again, just again, um the whole theme here being like just to remain malleable and curious, even against this. And again, I say that as I'm saying that out loud, I recognize the immense privilege um, I have just to say that out loud, because again, so many people are dealing with, reacting to, and responding to like such stressful and scary situations. But just finding the ways to, um, if not just be curious and play with that curiosity, but just to like be kind to yourself, and to be kind to your friends and family and your community members, because we're all under such, varying amounts of stress in this ongoing saga.
Yeah. So I developed a little mantra. I'm not, well, I developed a little mantra that I always say to myself, like when I start to get all worked up or worried or like frantic, I just do the basic kind of mindfulness check in. It's like, are you okay right now? Like in the moment, or like I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling anxious. It's like, okay, but right now in this moment, are you good? Or like, are you having some emergency? Do you need to call an ambulance? No, you are factually fine. And it's like just sort of like it sounds so stupid, but it just reminding yourself that to just like you like gong fu and everything, it just brings you to that moment. We're always worrying about what's coming next, and there's like good reason to worry about what's to come, but also, and you should like look to the future a little bit, but your main focus always should be like where you're at, and then you can stray a little bit and look into the future, look into the past, but should really keep continuing back to just being present.
I mean, yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it's important to evaluate our codependent relationships. I mean, just the way that we can relate to other people, our partners, um, kids, coworkers, mentors, therapists, you know, like just there's the way that we co-regulate with each other, right? I mean, um, one of the most strangely, you know, heartbreaking nuanced aspects of life in a pandemic, of in a respiratory pandemic, where talking to talking to strangers with improperly fitted masks becomes like a real danger, is this sort of loss of water cooler conversation and kind of small talk, you know, just pleasantries that we can exchange with one another.
I want to
Hey, how's
add
it
though,
going?
meaningful
Yes,
small talk.
yes,
There is
absolutely.
nothing I hate more than somebody who they say good morning to you, but you look at their face and you're like, their face doesn't even match what they're saying. And it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that they have to come over and start an hour-long conversation, but just so we live in a townhouse like complex community. And I take my dogs out multiple times a day and I do the whole neighborhood. And anytime I see anyone, I say, hi, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Take care. See you again. Like it sometimes it literally is just that much. It's those little extra gestures that they make other people's view of you better. And it also makes you, I mean, you are doing more positive things.
but you're also, yeah, and you're also like, if there's a chance, if there's an opportunity for like eye contact and noticing each other breathing, like there is an actual like chemical, you know, reaction happening, which is like, I don't know, there's some aspects of you know, again, I'm not an expert, but like there's some release of if not dopamine, but maybe some kind of oxytocin, just some something that helps our bodies and our hearts and our minds and our spirits, you know, like in this brief connection or conversation together, right? That's
I'm
the
sure that you've learned to smile with your eyes too. Like, you
absolutely.
know what I mean? Like that was a weird little learning curve in the beginning because you were like, holy crap, I feel like every time I talk to a person, I feel like I'm talking to a mannequin.
Yeah, yeah.
But all of a sudden you start to learn different ways of bending your eyebrows and different types of squints that you
Especially when
can.
so much real estate is now obscured by a mask. It's so important to be really present when we're, you know,
Something
when we're talking to someone with a mask on.
some insight I just want to give as someone that had some experience. I did not catch COVID, thank goodness. I am a type 1 diabetic. It wouldn't be good, all that. But I had some health issues amidst COVID. And I'm not a whistleblower. I'm not a person who thinks that everything should be red alarm emergency. But and I was in the hospital twice within a 2-week period. The same exact area of the hospital, same exact nurses, just 2 weeks apart. And dude, the first time was like a hotel stay. What can we get you, Mr. Cleary? Oh, can I get some more water for my tea? Sure. I had tea. The nurses would love it. They'd come and bring me hot water all the time. It was like a lovely stay at the hospital. Dude, the second time, if for no other reason, the horror of how burnt out,
Yes.
like the nurses that were so pleasant and laughing, and the first time around, the second time around, you just saw this just blank look, and they're robotically going from one task to the next, not because they're trying to be discourteous, but because that's their brain has to stay on track. So that's what they have to do to stay on track. And I was taking it seriously prior to that. But after like seeing that, I reached out to a couple of friends that I wouldn't say that they weren't taking it seriously, but people that I know, like everyone, was like, I don't know what I can trust and what I can't trust. And I was just like, look, this is what I saw and this is what I experienced. And if there's nothing else that I learned out of the situation that a lot of people don't realize until like you're like me and you're in the situation is you don't just right now have to be afraid of going to the hospital because you have COVID. If you break your knee, if you get injured of any way and you have to go to the hospital, you have the same extreme weight. You have the same possibility of not getting seen. You have the same, if not more so.
Yep.
Then so a lot of people don't realize that is it until you're in that time of need and you realize that the help that's supposed to be that backbone that's always there to revive you, you see that system as broke as it is. On top of my wife works in hospital administration. So luckily, dude, that's in a time where you can't trust a lot. It was amazing to have a wife that had the exact numbers, the exact data, the stuff that wasn't in the circulated news yet. So it's just I was able to have a very trusted source of, okay, is it safe for me to do this or no? Like, no. Okay. Just wanted to, didn't know because there was so much, back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
But that's why podcast, I think, got so popular is that thankfully there are a lot of people like us in all sorts of industries that are not only talking on here on behalf of their industry, but just on behalf of people, just because they're a person who sees what's going on and they're like, it sounds weird, but my opinion literally could help some people. That's significant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that story. And I'm glad to hear that, you had, I mean, you learned, I mean, you observed what you observed and you came out of that, I mean, intact and healthy. Um, and, yeah, just thinking about, and that was then, I mean, just again, thinking about with this new variant and with,
Dude, and right now, uh, it's just, yeah, it's ominous. It's got bad, ominous. It's not necessarily, like I said, it's not necessarily the end of days. This is such a weird virus variant strain. All of them are weird. They act very strangely. Literally I believe anything could happen. I firmly believe that this winter could roll through and COVID it resolves, everything starts to get back up to speed. I think that's literally almost just as possible as everything completely going to hell.
sure.
But keeping yourself healthy, and that obviously means physically, it means eating the right things. And like we're talking about with technology, it's about consuming the right things technologically. And
And in moderation, right?
Do you have like warning signs that start to arise? Mine is I'll notice I'll get very negative. My tone becomes darker. And when I realize it, I go, okay, time for a break. However I do that, however long whatever I need to do, I do. But when I realize I'm getting there, I then shut my mouth because I'm like, I'm not doing good with this right now.
Yeah,
Right now I'm using this for kind of crappy reasons. So I was like, I need to stop that so it doesn't affect anyone else, fix myself, and then I can get back on and do what I do and help understand other people and have other people understand me. But if you're all jammed up,
Yeah. Yeah. I personally notice it just in my body. Like I notice my heart rate. I notice my breathing is short, and I notice like I'll feel like if I feel like sad or depressed in a way, it's like I'll just feel extremely heavy and
yep,
unmotivated
depressed.
and stuff like that. So
Yep.
or I'll feel like hangry because I'm like spending too much time doing so and so, whether it's being distracted or trying to pursue a task or project, and then I forget to like take care of myself, forget to drink a cup of water or eat food, and like I already have like a hanger thing to begin with, so I'm well aware of that. But when I notice that I don't have a good grip on it, is when that's an indicator to me to like disengage, and if not just to disengage, to just like just sit and maybe
What's your
get a few
typical
minutes of.
disengage process?
Well, this is a great one. It's my favorite one, right? So I have my setup, right? This is like my table. I have my setup. I have my sort of chest of TNT ware close by, and so it's it's like an altar, if you will, that I
Yep.
can always come to. So that's a great one. And then there's other forms of disengaging. It's like, I mean, like I live here in LA with my partner and our daughter, so it's like cleaning, go wash the dishes. That's the underestimated form of kind
Dude,
of self-regulating
I'm
and
the cooking and clean in my house. Like I do all the cooking. I'm the housewife. And let me tell you, I I wouldn't have it any other way. The amount of accomplishment that I feel after I clean something or after I cook a meal, it's like you were talking about earlier. It's just as cooking a meal for me is just as effective as gong fu. I get just as
yeah,
much out of it.
yeah. And whether you approach that kind of a experience as like I need to work through some feelings, or I need, it's like I'm gonna take out my frustration or angst on like washing the dishes, whether you feel better at the end or not, at least you at least you have a kitchen full of clean dishes. So to not attach an outcome or an expectation to that kind of thing is also really useful. But just to like find the tools and the resources or the practices to like do something do something nice, not only for yourself, right? What is that thing they say in airplanes? Like, be sure to put on your oxygen mask first before helping anyone else or helping your children. That's that's also important in this context. Like, we have to take care of ourselves and be okay. Just right. Just to go back to what you said 20 minutes ago, like you know this sort of ominous message that is so important for us as individuals to be able to feel first before we can share with others is everything's going to be okay.
And I
Even if it
mean,
doesn't feel even if it doesn't feel that way, or things are intensely stressful, it's like if that is at the core, and and being able to experience that through day in and day out, just whatever tasks, chores, uh something nice like tea or baking or cooking or cleaning or doing laundry, those kinds of things. But just to like really, if you're able to like immerse yourself in it, that's a really, to me personally, that feels like a good indicator of like knowing that like things are going to be okay. And just to also point out that like this isn't, I mean, this current set of variables is new and novel. That's why they call it a novel coronavirus. But like there have been plagues and pandemics and um, famines and wars and battles and empires and dynasties. And there's been all these facts and states of being that have preceded us today, um, that is humbling to like look back at history and to just be able to learn and read about, again, if you have the bandwidth to do so. But something that comforts me still to this day as we move forward in the midst of uncertainty is that, you know, like tea has been there the whole time. Like tea is co-evolved or coexisted with us through all those uh, you know, all these periods, you know, pre-globalization, during wars and times of peace and times of famine and times of prosperity. It's kind of just been there the whole time. And so I personally take comfort in that. And I don't really think of myself as like as a in-depth storyteller when it comes to this, but like it's just that kind of like awareness of, oh, this has been there forever and we're moving forward in the midst of uncertainty. And like, you know, like that to me is another reminder,
It's
a
a
sort of
rock.
whispering reminder to like things, it's a rock. Yeah, absolutely, that it's going to be okay. um and and again, like all of this that we're talking about right now like is under the umbrella of like of mental health and recognizing that in these times with these variables, we need to pay attention to how we are uh, experiencing, you know, our feelings and emotions, and how we work through stress, and if we have the bandwidth to you know, help be kind to others, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, coworkers. um
I think that's beautifully said, and brings. I think this is a fantastic area to stop. We've
mhm.
gladly blown past the 45 minutes I
Oh
planned.
yeah.
I had a feeling we would, but I just tell people like worst case scenario, we'll stop at 45 minutes. But I'll tell you, I've learned a lot. I've really enjoyed. I knew this would help me get to know you better personally. If you want to go ahead, I'll let you give your credentials and your podcast and stuff, where people can find you.
Sure. Fine, yeah, you could find me on Instagram at Adam Yasmin underscore. You can find me through my website, which is adamyasmin.com. That's YASMIN. Um, I'm not on too many social media platforms. I actually just recently signed up to Twitter. I've been off there for 3 years. So you could probably find me there as well. You could stream the podcast anywhere you stream podcasts. It's called Wabi Sabi with Adam Yasmin. I've been doing the show for almost 3 years. I don't have a ton of episodes, but they're definitely deep,
Just you can
deep episodes.
send me over, or I'll compile a list of
Oh
links,
yeah, yeah,
and we'll put links
absolutely,
in the thing on YouTube, in the comments and
absolutely.
all that. So again, Adam, I really appreciate this. I've had an absolute ball, and again, I feel much better, well, more informed after having the conversation, which is, I guess, always the goal when you're doing something like this. So please, everybody, if you like what Adam's talked about, or you want to hear more, he's very approachable. Um, but yeah, so this is tea and stuff. If you like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that are unfortunately necessary for me to say. Um, but thank you for spending time and giving us the attention, because we really appreciate it. We put this out there so that people can hopefully do other positive things with it, and for us, at least right now, I can say I think we're doing a good job. So thank you a ton again, Adam. We'll be in
Thank you,
touch,
Jeff.
and
And congrats on really like start, like
It,
you have to set sail. So
thank
kudos
you.
to you.
Cheers as well, man. Thank you and take care.